Is it smart to train with a brand new pistol for the first time? An appendix carry? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nobody, and we are at another untrained, unprofessional shooting range, which just happens to be wherever I decide to shoot. And this is not a typical spot for me. This is actually well above the valley floor because down in the valley, there's like 20, 30 mile per hour winds, and it's a little chilly down there, so forgive me, I'm soft. But anyway, I decided to explore, come up the side of the mountain to get out of the wind, and I found this nice little location. Now, I really like this because it is uneven terrain on the road, and so that allows me to get used to shooting in non-flat range kind of environments, which is kind of fun. And I'm also playing with this little guy, the Ruger RXM. Well, I guess I should say the Magpul part, the Ruger and Magpul collaboration called the RXM. Now, I will say that so far, I only have 50 rounds through this, but I'm going to be doing more before this video is over. And I wanted to sight in this red dot, just to see how it was going to be. And I've had zero malfunctions with this. I've been using the Magpul mags. I have, of course, cleaned and lubricated this before I came out here, which is just a smart thing to do when you get a new gun. I really don't like videos that just take it straight from the box and get surprised, when things don't run smoothly. Also, what I did was I made sure that the screw for this hollow sun was not interrupting this little rod that goes in here for the extractor, because some people have said that they have had issues with that. But I will tell you, when I was making sure that my screw was not too long impeding into that channel, that I did see some interesting machining marks, which I'll put up here. Now, so far out of the 50 rounds, that has not caused any problems, but I will go ahead and try to smooth those out just to increase the reliability down the line. This video is not going to be about running and gunning on uneven terrain or even shooting a bunch of rounds. It's going to be about figuring out what makes this thing tick. But in the meantime, I at least deserve to put at least 250 rounds through this to see if I can induce any type of malfunctions. And then when I get back to the bench, I can see if there are any issues from firing it. Must press record! Equipment malfunction. I'm wired. Normally would not be an issue. All right, let's try this again. I've seen a lot of people talk about the usage of the Magpul mags and how you should go to the Glock mags because they're more proven and reliable. I'm not there yet. Yes, Glock makes reliable magazines, but whether the Magpul mags are not as reliable, I don't know. I've never had any issues with them, but I don't have a lot anyway. I have 2 and I haven't used them that much. Well, now I have 2 more. But I also have a couple of ETS mags. I'm kind of curious how they do. That one worked. I'm 160 rounds in so far, and let's talk about hotspots. Now, hotspots are going to be very determined based off of your hand size. And I'll tell you that for my particular hand size, which I don't have huge hands by any means, I have short stubby fingers, but I have 2, one on each hand. The first one is right here on this knuckle, right where it comes underneath the trigger guard. The trigger guard. So it's just kind of a sharp little corner, but I think that's something that can be easily taken care of with a little bit of creative sanding. So no big deal. Now the other thing is on this hand, and it's this thumb right here. you have this nice little ledge right here on the side of the frame, which is kind of nice. If your hand is big enough to where your knuckle kind of fits just past your takedown notch, it's not an issue. However, if you have a good grip and you marry up just right, well, look where that takedown tends to be, right here on the side of the thumb. And 160 rounds in, I do notice it. I got a feeling I'm going to eventually have a nice little callus right there, which then you really won't feel it anymore, but initially it's going to suck just a little bit. Don't miss that follow-up shot. Reset. Missed that one. So I'm trying to spend some time drawing, lock the slide back, reload, just because some people have reported that the slide release has had some issues. So I'm trying to see if I can generate an issue. And so far, I'm close to 70-ish rounds after this magazine. I have not been able to induce it. I think for 400 bucks, this is a winner. It was kind of sluggish. All right, before we break this down, I do want to check some things out about the trigger. I want to test the trigger pull weight, and I also want to see how far the trigger pull is. Now, as you can see, I went ahead and taped it already, put a little witness mark where the front of the trigger is, not where the safety, but where the front of the trigger is, and we'll now see how far it goes. And can I do this backwards? Okay. Trying to see if I can show you where reset is here. Okay, so that's reset. Now let me see if I can mark this. So the first mark is where the trigger naturally rests. The back mark is where it breaks, and it's actually closer to the front of that back mark. And this little inverted V, the chevron, is where it resets to. So just to give you an idea of the length of the trigger pull. So it's about 3/8 of an inch, give or take a little bit, but just an FYI. Now let's go ahead and see what trigger pull weight is. Now when I first got it and I was kind of playing with it, the trigger didn't feel that great. It actually felt a little gritty, but over the course of firing, it definitely got a lot better. Now, is it any type of performance trigger? No, it's not, but it is better than a stock trigger. And if only after 250 rounds it feels like that, imagine what a little bit of polishing might do. Okay, so I'm getting anywhere between 4.8 to 4.13. Not bad, you know, definitely Glockish, which Glock triggers tend to be 5.5, 6 pounds sometimes, so that one's 5.2. 4.7, that's the lowest that I've gotten. So, and that was on the very tip of the trigger. All right, so let's go ahead and break this down and see what 250 rounds of firing actually looks like on this. And we'll go ahead and look at both of these. And I'm seeing some brass shavings. You can see those little glints. Also, you can see where It rides right over the magazine. We have a lot of brass transference, so we're getting a lot of drag, and that might be the result of the sluggishness with those 15 round magazines, that it's exerting a lot of force on it. So we can do some polishing there, and that'll kind of help slick it up a little bit, make it cycle a little bit faster. All right, so I want to break this down just because I want to see exactly where the differences are. And we already know that this has a a fire control insert or unit, depending on what you want to call it. Ruger and Magpul call it an insert. So, but does it stop there? Well, let's see what they offer. Yeah, so we have a metal guide rod, and it looks like you can replace the spring. Okay, so I had to stop for a minute and really look at this, because I thought, and I didn't look at this end too closely, that you could take this down with an Allen, but it's just a nice round hole and it just captures the spring. And then I started looking at this going, oh, this spins. But somehow this is locked in, and also this has a lot of wobble in it, which, can you see that? And I don't know if that is by design or this part is having some issues. But I don't know how I feel about that. We'll set that aside. Barrel. As you can see, there are some little brass shavings there. Now, whether that is getting kicked from the slide or if going into which... Here, let's see. Can you see? There's little glints right there at the top of the feed ramp. So it may be dragging kind of hard and shaving right there. I don't know, this actually might be a combination of things, guys. Okay, picture that I showed you earlier, this thing has resistance coming out. It is physically catching on something inside here. And it is not the screw, because it was doing it before I put this on, because I noticed it when I stripped the slide, so I can look in there to see if the screw was going to protrude, and that's when I noticed that it will hang up. There we go. Now, one thing that's really nice about this firing pin safety is that a lot of times these are just beveled on a machine and topped off. This has actually been blended, so it is kind of like a finished part, something that you would do yourself. So I thought that was a nice touch. Let's see, this rod for the extractor here feels nice and smooth. Nothing to worry about there. I don't like this little plastic piece that goes at the end that rests up against the plate. It does not lock into place. I wish they would have captured that, but not the end of the world. Just make sure you don't lose it. It's just like a Glock plate. Extractor looks like an extractor. Alright, so the firing pin assembly. Notice how it has these little cutouts on these cups. So usually to get that, you have to upgrade to the marine version for water. So, but this actually comes with that kind of version, you know, which is a nice little touch. So I like that. Spring feels really good. That is tight to get through there, no problem. Firing pin looks good. Looks like I'm getting wear on the firing pin from that cruciform just on one side. So something that can be worked on in the future. And that is the slide. Okay, let's go ahead and break down the frame. We're going to use a 3/32, and then this guy. There we go. So on this pin, it's definitely keyed a very specific way to where there's only one way you can go in and out. Big rectangle on that side, small circle on that side. And then the last thing is the takedown. And all you do is you compress that little spring because it has a little notch right there in the bottom. Now we should just be able to lift up a little bit. And the first time is probably going to be the hardest. But that was pretty easy. So as you can tell, I didn't have to lift up very far on it for an angle, just enough to clear the trigger shoe and then pull forward. Because this actually locks into the back of the frame, the fire control insert. Yeah, very simple procedure. Very interesting that this big, we'll call it a pin, is held in place with this little spring right here. I was wondering how they were going to do it to keep tension on it. And, oh, it comes out very easy if you're not careful. It just kind of sits in there. Good to know. Don't lose that. If you want to take your mag release out, there is a little straight spring right here. Okay, so if this is your first time, that little straight spring there needs to be bent over towards the right. And then there is a little notch right here in your mag release that you're going to push that over and pull out. Okay, so now we're just left with the fire control unit, which I want to pull apart just because it has some of the factory grease with some of the grease and oil that I put on it. And I just want to see how easy it is to pull apart. And initially it looks like it's just two pins right here. This pin which holds your trigger shoe and also your slide release. And then this pin here has a keyed shape on one side, and that holds your ejector housing. Let's see if I'm right. Okay, so Glock pin, release, locking block is now free. Someone's texting me. Someone's calling me. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. Work got in the way. But in the meantime, while I was looking at this, what I initially thought was a pin is not. It's actually just a molded part of the ejector housing. So you just want to gently spread and pop out. Alright, so then from here, we should just be able to, just like normal, take that little S-spring off, pop out this connector. Well, that's tight on the Glock tool. And I guess the biggest change that you're not going to be able to replace with a regular Gen 3 part is this ejector housing. It is not the same. So which would have to be in order to lock into the main part of your fire control insert. So, but all the other components, your spring, your connector, your cruciform and trigger, do all look compatible. But if you're a fan of Johnny Glocks, it looks like you should still be able to do some modifications for your pre-travel and over-travel. So that is a good thing. There is the breakdown of the Ruger RXM. And honestly, you know, for $400, you know, which is what I paid for out of my own pocket. You know, people don't send me this type of stuff. I really think it's a no-brainer. And some people have called this a Glock killer or the PSA dagger killer. I don't think it's a killer by any means. I think it is going to force another round of innovations, which is definitely something that Glock needs to do. So, but there we are. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good day. I got a pile of stuff I got to put together.